To the movies, got science, we got maths, you're staying up to class, after class. To the movies, got science, we got maths, you're staying up to class, after class.
It's 6:01 p.m. and you're listening to iScience Radio. Welcome back to both our listeners and ourselves, as last week we could not broadcast because we were helping Vaish celebrate her belated graduation from UCL due to COVID, obviously. So big shout out to Vaish and Sophie, actually, who both had their undergrad graduation last week. And also shout out to Camilla at this point, because unfortunately she had to leave earlier. She didn't feel that well. Hopefully you feel better soon and you're listening now. But that also means someone else had to take over for tonight on the production side. And I'm really glad that Mr. Aaron Kemchandani has volunteered to do so. So yeah, we got Aaron on the production side tonight, which is really exciting. And that makes it a very special episode. I know we always say that every single week. It's a very special episode because this time it is truly special. Not just because Aaron's on the production side, but also because today's and tonight's theme is botany. So for those of you who don't know what botany is the branch of biology that deals with the study of plants, including their structure, properties, and biochemical processes. So obviously, it's a special episode because plants are absolutely, unequivocally, distinctly amazing. In fact, there are about 391,000 species of plants known to science today. And fun fact, only 30 of them provide 90% of the food we eat. Pretty crazy, right? I mean, needless to say, the immense plant diversity on our planet has all sorts of benefits. So it's not just these 30 species. Plants absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen from their leaves through photosynthesis, and that oxygen is what we other animals need to breathe. Living creatures also depend on plants to meet more fundamental needs for living, for example, food sources or as a place to house. Just imagine how many insect species live in just one giant tree in the Amazon rainforest, or more closely to imagination, you surely must have thought what it would be like to live in a treehouse, or maybe you've even had one yourself, quite privileged as a kid. Either way, it just goes to show that people and the plant world are inextricably interlinked, and we depend on plants in almost every aspect of our lives, not just for food and shelter, as already mentioned, but equally for clean air, water, fuel, clothing, and medicine. And we're actually going to talk about the medicinal use more specifically later on, so you don't want to miss out on that. And now I think it's time for us to play our first song. And like always, we will play songs related to today's theme. And we could have gone the classic, more obvious route of, playing flower-named songs and those with the word green in it, or about our planet in general. But instead, what we thought would be a good idea, we will be playing songs that follow the steps of photosynthesis. So yes, you heard us correctly, photosynthesis. It is amazing and ever-important process when plants take in carbon dioxide and water and using light energy to convert that into a sugar molecule and oxygen. So keep those 5 main components in mind of CO2, water, light, sugar, and oxygen. And our first song is No Air by Jordan Sparks and Chris Brown.
If I should die before I wake, it's 'cause you took my breath away. Losing you is like living in a world with no air. Oh, I'm here alone, didn't want to leave. My heart will move and you gon' be without me. If you ain't here, I just can't breathe. There's no air, no air. Oh, no, no air, no air.
So that was once again No Air by Jordan Sparks and Chris Brown. As the title suggests, we picked this song to symbolize the carbon dioxide taken up by plants, which to humans, if we breathe copious amounts, can affect our respiratory function. Hence for us it's not enough air, but anyway, it's a great song that was released in 2008 and it was nominated for Best Pop Collaboration at the 51st Grammy Awards. And speaking of best, and still related to our botany theme for this week, Camille and I wanted to share some of London's best green spaces, which are obviously filled with beautiful plants. So, according to the Wikipedia page about parks and open spaces in London, there are 4 distinct green spaces one can encounter. So the first one are royal parks. In Greater London, this includes a total of 8, and originally they were created for the recreation, mostly hunting, of the royal family, as the name suggests. So this is why famously Bushy Park and Richmond Park have deers. And these 8 include Bushy Park, Green Park, Greenwich Park, Hyde Park, Kensington Gardens, Regent's Park, Richmond Park, and St James's Park. And the defining feature of them is that they're managed by a charity called the Royal Parks. And this is in contrast with council parks around the city, which are instead council owned and thus managed by that expensive, council tax, which we all eventually have to pay once we cease being students. Now, within these council-owned parks, we have some notable names, including Battersea Park, owned by the Wandsworth Council, and Brockwell Park, owned by Lambeth Council, where Camilla lives. Next, we have the Commons, which are especially prevalent in South London. So this includes the likes of Wimbledon Common, Clapham Common, Hampstead Heath, Wandsworth Common, and Chiswick Common. Now, originally, commons were land owned by lords, but the distinguishing feature in that case is that these owners would allow local people to utilize these green spaces, for example, for grazing animals, which is why they are usually open green parks and different to parks that usually only contain green spaces or wooded areas, whereas parks include flowers, beds, and other stuff, for example, as you know. Lastly, London is filled with garden squares. These are usually much smaller than parks and commons, but nonetheless they are very much enjoyed and important, not only, for biodiversity. In fact, they form important links in the green chain between the city's parks and back gardens for wildlife, for lots of, many species. Alright, so that was a lot of information history, but all very interesting, if I do say myself, and some personal favorites of mine, in terms of parks, include Regent's Park and Primrose Hill, which is such a nice hill, because you can just go up there and see the whole city of London in its full beauty. And meanwhile, Camilla wanted me to say and suggest Gunnersbury Park. Over in West London, within Gunnersbury, you'll find a beautiful 18th century temple, an orangery, and a large mansion. And finally, not falling within any of these 4 categories we just mentioned, but a mere just 20 minutes tube ride away from South Kensington, we have the beautiful Royal Botanical Gardens of Kew. Now, Kew has the largest and most diverse botanical collection in the world, and its impeccable gardens are open to the public. But aside from the gardens, Kew is also a really important research center with over 300 scientists. And right after this next song, which, will be an interesting song as well, we'll have Celeste from our course on the radio show it's her debut as well, to tell us a bit about Kew and her own botany experience. But as I said, until then, here is another song, What the Water Gave Me by Florence and the Machine. Enjoy.
Time it took us to where the water was. That's what the water gave me. And time goes quicker between the two of us. But oh my love, don't forsake me. Take what the water Would you have it any other way? You couldn't have it any other way. 'Cause she's a cruel mistress, and a bargain must be made. But oh my love, don't forget me when I let the water take me. So lay me down, let the only sound be the overflow. Pockets full of stones, lay me down. Let the only sound be the
What a tune. That was Florence's second debut here on the show, so you could say we're kind of fans. But yes, once again, that was What the Water Gave Me, which, with the process of photosynthesis in mind, includes eventually sugar and oxygen. Alright, but now it's time for us to welcome our first guest on the show for tonight, which is Celeste. Hi, Celeste. Welcome on the show.
Hi.
To start us off, like always, would you like to introduce yourself or, share a fun fact about you, maybe?
Well, I am at the moment studying science communication with you and Aaron and Camilla. And previously, my background was in botany. I did a master's back home in South Africa. And yeah, a fun fact about me would probably be that I'm quite artistic and I enjoy to create botanical art and scanography as well. With plants.
Yeah, and we've seen that in the first edition of the iScience magazine this year already. It's quite impressive, not gonna lie. So yeah, as you said, you have a background in botany and also ecology, as I heard. So can you share with us exactly what you did, like in your undergrad experience, and then also leading on to your masters, what you did for that?
Well, for my undergrad, I studied at the same university as for my masters, and that was in Stellenbosch, back in South Africa. And my degree was technically biodiversity and ecology, and then I took a gap year and then I went back to do a master's in botany, but technically I'm a specialist in pollination biology, so the interaction of plants and animals.
Oh, I see. Interesting. Yeah. So in that sense, did you always know that you wanted to do like botany and then pollination and that sort of relationship, or was there one experience in your, say, childhood that really inspired you to, I'm really into plants?
Well, not necessarily plants per se. I was always a very outdoorsy kid. I grew up with a lot of animals and a lot of like exposure to the outdoors. And I think for most people that go into nature, they find that David Attenborough is a great role model.
Yeah, to everyone, I guess.
To everyone, I guess. And I feel like it was probably The Private Life of Plants, his documentary on his revolutionary documentary on plants and essentially how plants can move and how they're pollinated, how specialized they are. I just found that fantastic, and I thought, wow, I really want to see why plants look the way they do and how flowers are adapted to their pollinators.
Interesting. That's very like touching as well, kind of like your moment of inspiration. So, do you have a favorite plant species then?
Well, I think I like the orchids most, but there's a particular orchid, and David Attenborough talks about this in The Private Life of Plants. It's called the hammer orchid. It's an Australian species, and what makes it really cool is that it basically mimics an insect, the pheromones of an insect. So
oh wow,
it has this weird, fluffy, ugly, black part on the flower that mimics the shape and the smell of a female wasp, and then a male would come and try to pick up that female, but because it's attached to the orchid, it kind of acts like a pendulum, so the male hits himself against the front of the orchid, and in that way it picks up pollen, and in its frustration it flies off to the next orchid and then pollinates that. But I recommend looking it up, the hammer orchid.
Oh yeah, that's good. Would you ever want to have one yourself? Or could you ever, like, is that possible?
That is I don't think it's commercially available, but apart from that, I feel I am not good at looking after plants.
Okay.
I'm not a very good botanist, to be honest.
But you're really interested in botany. It's interesting, interesting dichotomy, so to speak. So we'll change of topic a little bit from your interest and your background onto what we talked about earlier, Kew Gardens. You're a massive fan, I heard. What is it about Kew that attracts you so much?
Well, since I was little, I really loved botanical gardens, and I had this book when I was a little girl. It was called The Paradise Garden by Colin Thompson, and it was this beautifully illustrated book about a little boy in the UK that hates living with his parents that are constantly fighting, and the city is driving him mad because it's so loud, so he escapes to this fantastic walled garden, and he lives there for a couple of seasons and lives off the tropical fruits that he picks in the glass houses. And that book was based on Kew Gardens.
Oh, okay.
And it was just, it was fantastic to see it in person. I saw it for the first time in 2014, and it's also just the world-leading institution for plant research.
Yeah. And so how many times have you been then, since your visit then?
Since I've arrived here in October now, I've probably gone 4 times.
Wow.
But mostly to show friends around, just because I love it so much.
Sounds really, really cool, yeah. And would you ever want to work there yourself?
Oh yeah, for sure. I would love to either do research there or do science communication there. I'm hoping to reach out as part of my dissertation as well, because they have a massive botanical art collection, which will be the topic of my dissertation.
Oh yeah, you can do some promo about on your dissertation as well. Yeah, it's a good idea. And also for the placement, I mean, eventually you could. Have you considered that for your placement as well? Maybe.
I have, but I've heard that it's quite tricky because it's such a massive institution. Yeah. So you'd have to go through their own channels.
Okay. Actually, there's no more questions on my script, so to speak. But you can, if there's anything else you want to share about your background, about maybe some like insightful stories about plants, some fun facts about plants that you know, anything that you want to share.
Well, let's see. I feel one recommendation that I have for Kew Gardens that everyone has to see is the Marianne North Gallery. And a lot of people don't realize that there are actually art galleries within Kew Gardens. And the Marianne North Gallery was commissioned by this amazing woman. She lived in the Victorian era, and she was a botanical painter that kind of defied all the women's norms of the time. And so through my dissertation, for example, I want to explore whether the historical influence of botanical art influenced botanical art that is still performed today. And back in the Victorian era, women were discouraged from being scientists, and the only way they could really live out their passion was to create botanical art and to contribute to botany in that way. And Marianne North, she discovered new species were named after her. She designed and commissioned, I think it's over 300 paintings within the gallery itself, and created the gallery as well. And it's amazing. It's floor to ceiling, of just paintings in oil paint. What makes her separate from contemporary botanical artists and traditional botanical art is that normally a plant is painted on a white background with watercolor. And with Marianne North, she painted the plants in their natural setting in oil color, and this made it completely different because in the past many specimens were painted from herbarium specimens, so they were dried out or they were collected and brought back to the UK and then painted here. But she wanted to make a point of it to paint a plant in its natural habitat, and then also include some local fauna and flora that around it and the landscape. So she went, I think, to almost every continent. She went to she even went to South Africa.
Cool. So yeah, that's a really, really great story. Like, really nice that you shared that with us as well, and a recommendation to visit as well, I guess. So I think, thanks so much for the interview. But before we say goodbye, finally, and as it's tradition, would you like to share with our listeners what is something going on in your life right now, other than your essay writing, dissertation, thinking? I don't know.
Goodness. I've kind of spoken about it already.
Yeah.
The whole dissertation. I'm very excited to be going home in April, and for my dissertation I'm planning on interviewing botanical artists and asking them how relevant they feel botanical art is still today and what it's still used for scientific communication. And I already have an artist lined up back home, and I'm very excited to meet her. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks so much, Celeste.
Thank you.
All right. So we've got CO2, we've got water, and now plants like us need that ever-powerful energy boost provided by light in their photosynthesis process. So to commemorate that, here's Light Switch by Charlie Puth.
Yeah. Why you calling at 11:30 when you only wanna do me dirty? But I hit right back 'cause you got that, yeah. Why you always wanna act like lovers, but you never wanna be each other's? I say don't look back, but I go right back and all of a sudden I'm hypnotized. You're the one that I can't deny. Every time that I say I'm turn me on like a light switch when you're moving your body around and around. Now I don't wanna fight this. You know how to just make me want you. Turn me on like a light switch when you're moving your body around and around. You got me in a tight grip. You know how to just make me want you, baby. Do you love it when you keep me guessing? When you leave and then you leave me stressing. But I can't stay mad when you walk like that, no. Why you always wanna act like lovers, but you never wanna be each other's? I said don't look back, but I go right back. And all of a sudden I'm hypnotized. You're the one that I can't deny. Every time that I say I'm gonna walk away, you turn me on like a light switch when you're moving your body around and around. Now I don't wanna fight this. You know how to just make me want you. Turn me on like a light switch when you're moving your body around and around. You got me in a tight grip. You know how to just make me want you, baby. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on and show me how you do. You want, you want, you want, you want, you wanna keep me wanting you. You wanna do, girl. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on and show me how you do. You want, you want, you want, you want, you wanna keep me wanting you. Turn me on like a light switch when you're moving your body around and around. Now I don't wanna fight this. You know how to just make me want to. You turn me on like a light switch when you're moving your body around and around. You got me in a tight grip. You know how to just make me want you, baby. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on and show me how you do. You want, you want, you want, you want, you wanna keep me wanting you. Come on, come on, come on, come on and show me how you do. You want, you want, you want, you want, you wanna keep me wanting you.
The Beats. That was the most recent single released by the very talented American singer-songwriter Charlie Puth. In fact, to get a teaser of his many talents, check out Charlie's TikTok account where he posts small clips of his sophisticated music production process. And speaking of production process, the way in which plant materials are used to produce medicine may be even more sophisticated than Charlie. Well, we've touched on the significance of plants at the start of the show in many ways, and so for the next few minutes we're going to shed more light on one of the specific uses, which is plant materials are used for medicine. First of all, we know that spending time outside in nature is good for our physical and mental well-being, and that's not only scientifically proven, but it's also kind of like a no-brainer, because we know it feels good. We feel it, especially in London. The sheer energy boost, when you get just from spending time in any of the parks mentioned before, or in any green spaces for that matter, is as always astounding. But other than improving our mental health, plants can also literally save our lives. And today, about 11% of the drugs considered basic or essential by the World Health Organization originated in flowering plants. And there are many more from those that do not have flowers. And thanks to decades of research, we're able to harness these life-saving powers of superhero plants whose chemical compounds form the basis of wonderful drugs that can help combat some of the most severe maladies, including cancer, for example, heart conditions, Parkinson's disease, or malaria. And historically, we've been using plants for healing before we even developed a written language. So ancient civilizations made remedies from seeds, herbs, leaves, fruits, barks, anything to treat a variety of diseases. And the use of traditional Chinese medicine, for example, dates back thousands of years, and there's also a 5,000-year-old clay slab from central India. And it's an early written evidence of the use of plants such as poppies and mandrakes in medicine. While many historical practices are questionable by today's standards, others are still valid these days. For example, the use of aloe vera is recommended, which is still used today for burns and ulcers, as well as honey, for example, is also a common treatment, which is valued for its natural antibacterial properties. Normally, you would suspect that any plant-derived medicine prescribed by a doctor today undergoes years of rigorous testing for efficacy and safety before ever being approved. New medicine new medicines are usually developed by chemists and biologists using computer models, but that doesn't mean that we should stop just taking inspiration from nature. Plants are a rich source of potential for new medicines and often serve as chemical templates for the development of new drugs. Researchers then spend months and years isolating their active ingredients and propagating them in the lab. Now let's take a look at two common examples, and for that purpose we're going to take a look at painkillers. Actually, at some point in your lives, most of us have taken painkillers derived from specific plants, and in this case we'll talk about aspirin and morphine. So first of all, the simple aspirin is, it's really a modern wonder drug, I would say, and one of the most widely used medicines in the world. It's derived from the bark of the willow tree, which was already recommended by the ancient Egyptians for the treatment of pain. People used to chew the twigs to relieve pain, and even today you can buy willow bark for this purpose. However, most of us take over-the-counter aspirin tablets whose active ingredient, and I hope I'm going to say that right, salicylic acid that active ingredient has been synthetically recreated. Now, aspirin has been shown to reduce the risk of heart attack and even help fight cancer, and experts believe it probably has other benefits that haven't been discovered yet. And now onto morphine, which is also a strong painkiller. It is often prescribed after operations or for broken bones. And that is extracted from opium poppy that is synthesized in labs today. Now, opium, or morphine now, was first isolated from poppies by the pharmacist Friedrich Sertner in the early 19th century, before pharmaceutical chemistry was recognized as a science at all. And now at the time, the drug was taken orally, whereas today it is usually administered intravenously, and Sertner experimented with both himself and his subjects to find a safe dose. And like opium, many of the plants we use to treat diseases are quite poisonous actually, and must be taken in careful measures, and to make sure that you don't end up with a lethal dose, of course. Pretty much in line with the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And you know what else makes you stronger? Sugar. As always, sugar, that sweet thing. So for our song so far, we had CO2, check. We had water, check. And we had sunlight, which means plants have in fact produced sugar, specifically glucose. So here's Sugar, We're Going Down by the rock band Fall Out Boy.
Am I more than you bargained for yet?
we're going down swinging. I'll be your number one with the bullet. A loaded gun complex, cock it and pull it. We're going down, down, around. And sugar, we're going down swinging. I'll be your number one with the bullet. A loaded gun complex, cock it and pull it. We're going down, 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 down. We're going down, down. A loaded gun complex, cock it and pull it. We're going down, down, around. And sugar, we're going down swinging. I'll be your number one with the bullet. Loaded gun complex, cock it and pull it.
Once again, that was Sugar We're Going Down by Fall Out Boy. It was released way back in 2005 as the lead single for the band's second album, From Under to Cork Tree. Interesting name, by the way. But it worked as this song is credited as the catalyst for the band entering the mainstream. And now we're going to play our second show's interview that was recorded earlier by Camilla with Sophie Ormiston. Let's roll the clip.
Okay. It is all about botany or plants. So tell us, I know that for your undergraduate dissertation, you did some sort of work with the BGCI. We already gave some context about it. So what exactly did you do?
So yeah, for my final year project, I was assigned a project in Kew, and we were looking at the cytotoxicity of seed endophytes. So that's endophytes are like microbes that are engaged in, they say, intimate association with a host plant. So they can be like bacteria or fungi that live in all parts of a plant. But their role isn't really known. We don't really know what they do in the plant, but all plants that have been examined for endophytes have them. So it's quite an interesting topic to look into. So I was specifically looking at fungal endophytes that were living in banana seeds.
Ooh, where were these banana seeds from? Were they from a specific part of the world, or?
Yeah, they were mostly from, I think, Malaysia and Southeast Asia. There were some from Vietnam as well, but a lot were from Malaysia. I'm not entirely. I think I just had that because those are the seeds they had. I'm not sure why they picked them, but I think a lot of banana plants can suffer from infections and disease, and they were hoping that by researching the fungal endophytes, we'd find some sort of solution to the infection problem.
And when you say research and you say they had seeds, so you actually went there and you looked at the seeds under the microscope? What exactly?
I came in a bit kind of partway through the project, so a PhD student had already got the seeds. I think they had stored them somewhere in Kew, and so the fungal endophytes are living inside the seed, and to get them out you had to plate the seeds onto agar and then just incubate them for a while, and the fungi would come out, and then you'd have to scrape off the fungi and replate it. So when I got there, the fungi had already been removed from the seeds. So yeah.
Oh, interesting. So what were some of your conclusions?
Well, unfortunately COVID came in and ruined the project, so I never got to finish it, but our aim was to so I kind of replated all the fungi again, and I was going to grow them in lots of different conditions. So why people are so interested in endophytes is that they're the fungi have produce so many secondary metabolites, which are compounds that they don't need to survive, but kind of help them, give them selective advantages and stuff. And a lot of these can be used as antibiotics, and there's a huge need for new antibiotics at the moment. And endophytes are kind of an unresearched, they could be a huge reservoir of antibiotics we haven't found yet. So that's why we're looking at endophytes. So I was going to grow these fungi in lots of different conditions to try and stimulate the production of different secondary metabolites, because we don't really know what turns those genes on. So we were just going to grow them in loads of different conditions, and then screen them for like antibiotic properties against different types of bacteria. So we were hoping we would find something, some sort of antibiotic, but we never got to that.
Imagine we get an antibiotic named after you, the Ormiston antibiotic.
Yeah,
that'd been cool.
That would have been cool, but
but unfortunately, but that's good. I mean, it sounds like a really good idea, but you still had to write your dissertation, surely. So how once COVID happened and you couldn't go in anymore, what did you do then?
So then it changed from like a lab project into just like a research proposal project. So I just kind of wrote what we would have done. But it kind of adapted it a bit. So like the project I think was only maybe 4 months long, but then when we wrote the final dissertation, it was like, what would you do over 3 years? So yeah, it was just kind of going into detail of like all these different techniques that you would do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know if they ever did it? Like once they were able to go back into work and stuff?
My supervisor, I think restarted the project up because he texted me, like asking me what all the different things were and what my plans were. So I think he restarted it, but I didn't hear if what happened. So maybe I should get in touch.
Yeah, it sounds like you have some unfinished business, but always hard work.
Yeah.
Do you miss doing research?
Sometimes I think I might miss the like idea of it rather than actually doing it. Because when I was looking back at like my work on this project, I was like, oh, it was so fun. Like I wish I could do that again. But I think in reality, it's a lot harder than it seems.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah. What about you? Do you miss research?
To be honest, no.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this master's course then. And when I actually did my dissertation, I did it on a podcast. It was a different type of research. Like it wasn't a classic, you go to a lab, mess around with agar, and microscopes and stuff. But I did see the appeal in that. It's when it works, it's like really satisfying. But it's quite frustrating too. What I like about the master's, how broad it is, and in research, like you just explained these things. These are very specific things which are really important. We need people to do it, but
it's so niche.
I know it's very niche, and I'm always concerned people get tunnel vision.
Yeah,
I say that word all the time nowadays. It's the word of the year for me. The phrase of the year, because it's 2 words.
But and it's a slow process as well. Like I think maybe I was at Q for about a month, and like I learned a lot, but in terms of the actual experiments, we didn't get very far because I don't know, there was like a week just waiting for like reagents to arrive and all kinds of things. But it was still fun.
Have you gone back to Q since?
No, I haven't.
We should go. I'm gonna take some of my housemates in the spring, so you should come along.
I miss getting the free access into Q.
Oh yeah, that was the best. I've been back like twice, and one time someone who was still working there, who I knew, let me in, and the other time they weren't there that day because they do like the hybrid working, and I had to pay, and I just felt so oh gosh, can't I just walk in every day. All right, so Sophie, is there anything else exciting going on in your life right now?
Not particularly.
Not particularly.
I'm trying to think what's going on. No, I just graduated.
Yes. Oh, you did. Yes. How was it? How was the Royal Albert Hall?
It was really nice, thank you. Yeah, it was exciting. It's been like 1.5 years since I actually finished my undergrad, so it was nice to see all the people from my course again.
Yeah.
It did feel a bit weird though to actually finally graduate since it's been so long, but it's very nice.
Last night my husband and I were watching BAFTA clips. And,
yeah.
That's in the Royal Albert Hall, and I was like, can you believe it? I'm gonna graduate there, and my friend graduated from there this week, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
So cool.
We got a good venue. For
sure. Did you, because you live really close by, yesterday, did you try and see any celebrities?
No, I didn't, but I have in the past.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, one time a couple of years ago. You can just kind of you can sometimes get behind the barriers. So one year I did. And it's quite exciting. It's exciting that all these things happen on our doorstep, basically.
I know, and I never seem to know they're happening until they're happening, and I'm like, oh God, I need to plan better.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Sophie, for making the time to come talk to us.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe next time we'll have you on for another game.
Oh, yeah. That would be fun.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right, great interview. Thanks for putting me up, Aaron, again. Thanks again for Sophie for making the time to talk to us. All right. And now Aaron wanted to go straight into the next song, but I'm going to have to do a little intro for that. For our final song of today's show, this one's dedicated to oxygen, the second ever important product of the photosynthesis process, and to share excitement and appreciation for this vital product. Here's the one and only Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight. And we encourage air drums whilst you listen. What a great final song. That was In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins, released in 1981. And it was Phil's debut solo, actually. But to this day, the song is extremely, extremely popular, especially due to its drum break, as you all know, towards the end. And as we mentioned drums, drum roll please, I'm going to do it with my fingers.
Oh, Lord.
Guess who's back on the show? Mr. Kamchandani in the flesh. From the production seat now onto being in the booth. Yeah. How's it going, Aaron?
I'm good. I'm trying to figure out the difference between a podium and a plinth.
Oh yeah, I think you've mentioned that before.
I figured it out. Like much like
difficult issue.
Yeah, much like the reason why. No, I was trying to think of a joke, but I couldn't think of one. See, it's a lot harder when you haven't pre-written stuff. Like it's sort of like I've come on here because due to Camilla's unforeseen, terrible, almost life-threatening sickness, I have had to take her place, and as such, I haven't had time to prepare anything. So I thought I decided, why don't I chat with plants with you? So why don't I interview you about your veganism?
Why are we always going back to veganism?
Because it's about plants. What else are plants good for other than trying to make people seem on the moral high ground?
A lot of if you listen to this show.
I'm not sure.
You were too busy with production. Let me ask you one question first. Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. Can I take Camilla's job? I'm not sure Camilla's listening to this, but Camilla, like, how, like, maybe like for like £5, can I take your job? Like, I'll give you £5. I'll give you a cheesecake. If you want some cheesecake, I'll make some. I'll give you a cookie. I'll buy you one from Pret. No, actually, no. You can't have cheesecake. It has to be vegan cheesecake, because otherwise you'll die. I'll give you like, what would she want?
Irony, you digging yourself a hole now. He's like,
well, what could I bribe her?
No,
with?
no. We can just like continue with the plant talk, I guess.
I loved it. I thought it was really fun. I think like I was quite nervous before because I'd never done it before, but I realized basically earlier, for the viewers that obviously hadn't seen this, Camilla was teaching me how to produce, and unlike DJ Khaled's job, my producer work is actually a lot of work, and basically I had to set up the stream, which involved pressing at least 7 buttons in 5 different places. I had to slide the microphone up and down. Vigorous labor, very intensive.
Vigorous, yeah.
Sliding the figure up and down the board.
Very, very
at
arduous.
least 12 times today, which is probably far too many. It was very arduous labor, but in the end we got there through my blood, sweat, and tears. I eventually managed to slide the microphone up at least several times at the right moments. So I enjoyed it.
Great, a job well done.
Thank you very
now
much.
onto plants.
What are your thoughts on plants in general? If you had to pick,
plants are amazing.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's great.
Would you ever eat a cactus? Because so basically cactus.
I think they can be eaten, right?
Yeah, you have to take the
spikes
and
the
spikes out. But apparently, so even if you wear gloves, they can still get through the gloves and still pierce your skin. The spikes. You take them out. What do you think is the best herb in general? Like, if you had to pick one herb to use for the rest of your life.
Oh, like herb as in like condiments as well?
Sort of like basil or rosemary, thyme kind of thing.
I love basil, to be honest.
Basil?
Yeah, basil is amazing.
Then why did you kill your first basil plant?
I didn't kill it. It was just like, okay, I have to give a bit of context. So there's a basil plant in my flat, which died, unfortunately, because I think we live on ground floor. There's not a lot of sunlight, and London isn't great weather for that either.
Yeah, it's true.
I did my best to, make it stay with us for as long as it could.
Was it?
I just bought a new one. No, no, but this one's doing fine so far.
Good. Until a few days from now, where it dies
I hope it's going to be more like weeks.
I hope so too.
No, it's going to. I reckon it will die when I go back to Germany over spring break. Unfortunately.
Speaking of plants, there's this one product that you can make with plants that is not very well known in today's world. It's brown in color and quite sweet. It's chocolate. It's quite niche to Mexico. I'm not sure if it's made its way to England yet, but it's quite a popular product over there. And there's this ice cream that Alex has showed me. It's from Lidl, the place where all good things happen. It's vegan ice cream.
Yes.
And it is fire. Like, so much so that Alex came to my house the other day, right? And he was looking for
tell
it.
a story.
And he took a while. He couldn't. You still haven't found it, have you? You looked at so many Lidls, you still couldn't find it.
Well, I went to 2, but the thing is, okay. I think they're currently out of stock, unfortunately. So this is like this vegan brand. It's Lidl's own vegan brand called Vimondo.
Yeah.
And they do lots of vegan products. But I think the best one yet is the ice cream. Like the chocolate brownie ice cream that you've tasted as well.
It's so good.
Yeah, amazing.
Like, I've said this before. Like, if I can find a vegan product that is as good as the non-vegan product and the same price, I'll switch. Because why wouldn't you switch? So like Greg's sausage roll, to be fair, it's the same price. It's the same price, but it tastes just as good, so I switched. And I think Although yesterday I did have the pork one because I wanted to feel naughty. But
You want to feel naughty.
anyway, thank you for having me on, Alex.
Thanks for jumping over and now jumping back again in your production seat. So I'm just gonna wrap up. Thanks, Aaron, for this, glorious intermezzo as always in your typical idiosyncratic fashion, I would say. So folks, that's it again for tonight. We hope you've been inspired by the wonders of plant world. You don't have to become a tree hugger or do a degree in botany now, but it's always good to remind yourself that plants are essential for the very lives we all live every single day, and we owe them a lot. I think after all, they make us happier, healthier and stronger. And that statement is especially and literally true for everyone following a plant-based diet, of course. Had to say that again. A shameless vegan plug. Anyway, have a great week. Go for a walk in one of London's, beautiful parks or any green spaces near wherever you're listening from. Now that the days are getting longer and the temperature keeps rising, it will be even more enjoyable, I would say. And we all can't wait to hit spring and see this. Do you see the flowers blossom? Just like Camilla and I will let our bud of creativity blossom for the radio show next week, which will be about the signs of siblings, actually, which will be an interesting one. As always, 6 to 7 p.m. on Monday. Until then, ciao.
Should be unknown. If John has 3 beans, Sarah has 4 beans, and Rashid has 926,000.
No use, Commander. She doesn't respond. She's gonna crash.
Our task must be to free ourselves by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures.
Journey into space.
I got lost on an elephant road, my head spinning, and how time passes, heaven knows. You wake up in a carnival occasion, can't help moving around, the heat blazing. Shared a kiss outside a cash dispenser, and I'm glad that we did. Ignored some stormy weather, feed a flower, it grows, treat it sour, it shows. But we could always go to the movies. Got science, we got maths, you're staying up to class, after class, after class. Got science, we got maths, stick to the cycle path, higher paths, just riding past.
Yet even modern urban man finds a need for parks with open spaces and green growing things.
Now we all know that E equals MC squared, but what does E equal when MC is Q?
So we resume this trip with bridges burned, keep travelling on but to where we're not concerned. Got to know my route round mostly service stations, can't get complacent while this world's still young. So you can run on ahead, I'll just keep tearing around corners, taking it in, see me leaping through wardrobes. This race is finished, the crowd cheers, but see the man in the red clutching his water like a trophy. Got science, we got maths, and I don't care about psychology. Got science, we got maths, science like biology. Got science, we got maths, from the reindeer to the wallaby. Got science, we got maths. What? We don't need your terminology, keep it specific, scientific, you must have missed it. Like deep physics, I mean business, I'm not a businessman.